Have you ever just stopped and thought about how much stories shape, well, everything? Your reality, the choices you make, even who you think you are. It's not just the personal stories, right? It's these bigger, almost invisible narratives woven into society.
Absolutely. They're everywhere.
Well, today we're doing a deep dive into a framework that helps us untangle exactly that. We're looking at Jalin Simunovich's work. It's called the Cognosystemic Theory of Human Psychosocial Relational Construction.
Which is quite a mouthful.
Definitely. We'll stick with TCCR, I think.
Good idea. And, despite the complex name, the aim here isn't to get bogged down in jargon.
Right.
It's really about showing TCCR as a useful, flexible tool. Think of it like a map for understanding the narrative architecture of human experience.
Narrative architecture, I like that. So it covers everything from our inner thoughts to global cultures?
Precisely. From the micro to the macro. It helps make sense of the stories that literally construct our worlds.
Okay, so to get us started, Simunovich talks about the Cognosystem. What should we picture when we hear that term? Is it just like a big pile of stories?
Not quite a pile. Imagine more of an intricate web. A vast network.
Okay.
The Cognosystem is this complex, interdependent network of all these narrative systems. Individual, social, cultural layers are all in there, constantly interacting, influencing each other. It's the whole universe of stories we live inside.
And why bother classifying them? What's the payoff for mapping this universe?
The payoff is huge, actually, and very practical. It's operational.
How so?
Well, this classification gives us a solid method for analysis, for building models, and maybe most importantly, for designing interventions, real-world interventions in psychosocial experience.
So you can pinpoint which stories are active.
Exactly. You understand their structure, how they work, and then you can engage with them strategically, whether that's helping an individual struggling with self-doubt or, say, a community dealing with major change.
So if I'm understanding correctly, TCCR isn't just saying stories are important, it's saying they're fundamental to how we even create meaning.
That's precisely it.
Yeah.
Narrative isn't just reflecting meaning, it's actively structuring it, regulating how meaning itself is configured.
Wow. Okay. Like the core operating system.
That's a great analogy. It's how we take raw experience and make it comprehensible, something we can navigate and act on. Without that narrative structuring, meaning just dissolves. It'd be chaos.
Right.
And that's really the jumping off point for this whole classification.
So TCCR breaks down this complex web into 3 main levels. I found these really helpful, almost like nesting dolls, each layer inside the next. Could you walk us through those?
Sure. That's a good way to think about it. At the very core, the smallest doll, if you will, we have interpersonal narratives.
Okay. Inside the individual.
Exactly. Operating entirely within your mind.
Yeah.
These are the narratives organizing your identity, how you perceive yourself, how you evaluate yourself, your inner monologue, essentially.
The stories we tell ourselves, maybe without even noticing.
That's often the case. Then, moving outward one layer, we get extrapersonal narratives.
So beyond the self.
Right. These regulate interactions in our closer circles, family, friends, colleagues. But they also stretch out to broader structures.
Like work or school.
Work, school, institutions, even the media we consume. They all operate with and through these extrapersonal narratives, stories we share or stories shared with us by our environment.
And the biggest doll, the outermost layer.
That would be the sociocultural narrative, the macro system level.
Okay, what defines these ones?
These are the grand narratives. They shape the fundamental norms, the morals, the traditions of an entire society or culture. They're often so deeply embedded, so implicit.
That you don't even see them.
Exactly. Until maybe you travel, or society goes through a huge shift, and suddenly those underlying assumptions are challenged. These are the bedrock stories of a collective.
It's fascinating how interconnected this all is. These different levels, from inner thoughts to societal myths, they aren't separate boxes.
Not at all. They constantly influence each other, and TCCR gets even more granular, breaking down distinct types of narrative systems within each of these levels.
Right. Should we dive into those types, starting with the interpersonal?
Let's do it. So within that interpersonal individual level, first up are identity narratives.
Defining who we are?
Basically, yes.
Yeah.
They structure the coherence of your self-concept. Think of someone who sees themselves as, say, an innovator. Even if they fail at one venture, they might frame it as a learning experience that fuels the next innovation, keeping that core identity narrative intact. It's a story you build and rebuild.
So identity isn't fixed, it's this ongoing story we tell.
That's a key insight of TCCR. It's dynamic, which means you have agency in shaping it. Then there are self-perception narratives.
How's that different from identity?
It's more about how you view yourself in specific situations or roles. The Forks use an academic example, someone starting out feeling insecure, but gaining confidence as they publish and get recognized.
So the narrative shifts from I'm uncertain to I'm a respected contributor.
Precisely. It's how external feedback reshapes that internal story about your capabilities in that context.
And linked to that is self-evaluation narratives. This sounds like self-esteem territory.
It is. This heavily influences self-esteem, self-worth, perceived efficacy. It's that inner critic or inner cheerleader.
Like telling yourself, I always mess up presentations.
Exactly. Even if you have evidence to the contrary. That narrative can become a self-fulfilling prophecy, leading to avoidance or poor performance. Recognizing it is the first step to changing it.
Okay, that covers the individual level. Moving outward, we get into ideological narratives. These feel bigger, more about belief systems.
They are. These shape our understanding of the world, our values. First, philosophical narratives.
Defining reality and ethics.
Yes, your personal ontology, your ethics. Imagine someone shifting from believing everything is predetermined, kind of fatalistic,
Right.
to embracing a view, maybe through Stoicism like Epictetus, that emphasizes personal agency and controlling your responses. That's a huge philosophical narrative shift. It changes how you interact with everything.
Then political narratives. How we see power, justice.
And how society should be organized. The source mentioned the shift from divine right of kings to popular sovereignty.
A massive narrative change.
Absolutely. It reframed where legitimacy comes from. It shows political fights are often battles between competing stories about power and fairness.
And completing the ideological set, religious or spiritual narratives.
These provide transcendent meaning, a sense of purpose beyond the everyday. Think of a community hit by hardship. Their shared spiritual narrative about faith and resilience can be incredibly powerful in guiding their response and recovery. It gives meaning to suffering.
Next category, chronological narratives. This seems straightforward about time.
Yes, but in nuanced ways. How we organize time, sequence events, look forward, and even value time itself.
So sequential narratives first.
These organize experience by cause and effect, like a project manager laying out the steps. We did A, which led to B, enabling C. It imposes order and logic, or even just how you recount your day.
Making sense of the flow of events.
Exactly. Then, perspective narratives. Looking ahead.
Planning, hoping, worrying.
All of the above. The entrepreneur envisioning success, adjusting plans based on the market, or you, as a listener, thinking about your career goals, imagining the future. That's a perspective narrative guiding your present actions.
And temporal value narratives, how we value time. This seems culturally influenced.
Very much so. The source contrasted a business perspective, time is money, efficiency is key, with, say, a farmer's perspective tied to natural cycles, patience, seasons.
Totally different ways of relating to time.
And they shape decisions constantly. Punctuality, planning horizons, everything.
Okay, let's shift to the interpersonal, social, extrapersonal level. Narratives in our relationships and groups.
Crucial ones. Starting with family narratives.
The stories families tell about themselves.
Yes, shaping that primary relational identity. The source had that example of a family facing hardship, adopting the story, our unity makes us strong.
And acting accordingly, reinforcing the story.
Precisely. It guides behavior, builds resilience. Then you have group narratives for smaller non-family groups.
Like a club or a team.
Or an activist group, as the source mentioned. Their narrative might evolve. Maybe the initial issue fades, but the core story of we fight for justice adapts, keeping the group cohesive and motivated. Shared struggles often forge these narratives.
And community narratives, the local level.
Right, constructing that sense of belonging. Like the neighborhood fighting displacement with the narrative, our history matters, our story isn't for sale. It creates solidarity against an external threat. It defines us.
Moving out again to organizational exosystemic narratives, dealing with larger structures.
Yes, formal institutions, the economy, media. First, institutional narratives.
How we relate to schools, government agencies, hospitals.
Exactly. A school promoting a narrative of academic excellence leads to success, shapes how students see their path, what they value, how they interact with the institution.
Then economic mercantile narratives. Stories about the economy, business, consumerism.
Like the tech narrative associating constant innovation with progress and well-being.
Driving us to want the next new gadget.
It's a powerful story shaping consumer desire and huge markets. And then media cultural narratives.
The stories from news, movies, social media. This feels hugely influential.
Immensely. and potentially problematic. The source gave that stark example of the actor harassed because fans couldn't separate him from his villainous character.
Scary. It shows how fictional narratives can bleed into reality.
It really does. It highlights the power media narratives have in shaping our social imaginary, our perceptions, even our actions towards others. Critical media literacy is so important here.
Finally, the broadest level, sociocultural macrosystemic narratives, the big society-wide stories.
The foundational ones, we have traditionalist narratives.
Preserving identity, legacy, the past.
Yes, often invoked during times of change, like globalization. A community might adapt its narrative from tradition is fixed to maybe tradition evolves by integrating new influences, finding resilience in adaptation.
Then moralist narratives, defining right and wrong for a whole culture.
And these can change dramatically over time. Think about the narrative of human dignity. Compare historical acceptance of things like slavery to today's global emphasis on human rights. It's a profound moral narrative transformation.
Next, normative narratives, the unwritten rules.
Kind of a how things are done stories.
Yeah.
The source used the example of work shifting from collective subsistence to industrial accumulation to today's narratives around flexibility, gig work, digital innovation. Each narrative reshapes expectations about work's role in life.
And lastly, legalist narratives about law, legitimacy, order.
Yeah, this is fascinating because law seems so concrete, but the narratives around it evolve. Think about intellectual property in the digital age. The legal narrative is constantly being updated through new laws and court cases to address challenges like AI-generated content or online piracy. The story of what constitutes ownership and rights keeps changing.
Okay, wow, that's a lot of narratives.
Yeah.
That incredibly detailed map. So the big question, what does this mean for you, the listener, trying to make sense of your own life within this dense web? How is this framework useful?
That's the crucial point. This isn't just an academic exercise. This classification gives us really practical tools.
How so?
Well, first, it enables intervention because you can identify the specific narratives at play, interpersonal, community, media, whatever. You can tailor interventions much more effectively. From therapy, focusing on self-evaluation narratives,
Right.
all the way to public policy addressing harmful sociocultural narratives. It allows for targeted action.
So it helps diagnose the underlying story?
Exactly. It helps understand the complex narrative structure of a person or a group. You see the connections, the underlying logic driving behavior, not just surface symptoms. It provides a much deeper diagnostic lens.
And for bigger picture stuff, policy research.
It offers powerful strategic tools for planning interventions, for conducting more nuanced research that accounts for these narrative layers, for designing public policy that's actually sensitive to the stories people live by. It pushes us towards a more holistic understanding.
One thing that really stands out is how dynamic this all is. These narratives aren't static things sitting in isolation.
Not at all. They exist in what TCCR calls a dynamic narrative ecology, constantly interacting, changing.
So narrative is always structuring and transforming.
Yes, continuously. It adapts, incorporates new experiences, reconfigures meanings. The classification helps visualize these shifts, the displacements and recombinations as contexts change. This highlights narrative plasticity.
Narrative plasticity, the idea that stories can bend and adapt.
Precisely. Their ability to remain relevant and functional, even when circumstances change dramatically. And this adaptation isn't always smooth.
You mean the narrative frictions?
Right. When narratives clash, say a traditional narrative bumping up against a progressive one, the friction isn't just conflict. It often drives adaptation. It forces reevaluation, pushes narratives to evolve, potentially becoming more resilient by incorporating new perspectives. It's often where growth happens.
And this happens through feedback loops. Stories talking to each other.
In a manner of speaking, yes. There are upward loops, an individual story influencing the collective. Downward loops, societal narratives shaping personal beliefs. And horizontal loops narratives at the same level, like different political narratives, influencing each other.
So it's all interconnected, constantly adapting.
It's a living system. This interconnectivity ensures mutual influence and continuous adaptation. It's what makes the narrative fabric of our lives so complex and dynamic.
So wrapping up, this TCCR framework really provides a comprehensive, quite sophisticated view of this human narrative fabric. It maps how all these different narrative systems, from the intensely personal to the broadly cultural, articulate our entire experience. It really does change how you see things.
It's a powerful lens, absolutely. And maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to take away from this deep dive. Consider your own epistemic attitude.
Meaning, my approach to belief and knowledge.
Exactly. toward the narratives you encounter every day? Do you tend towards rigid conviction, holding tight to stories even when challenged? Or do you lean towards a more adaptive doubt, a willingness to question, to reevaluate the stories shaping your understanding? Because how you answer that, your personal stance, really influences how effectively you can navigate, engage with, and perhaps even help reshape this vast, interconnected world of human stories we all inhabit.